Hello YouTube family, this is Kim Stevens and I'm back with another edition of Undiluted TV. And today I want to get into this, I want to get back to the whole Leaving Neverland documentary. Well, it's not a documentary, it's actually just a one-sided film. That's what it is. It's just a one-sided movie. So, you know, we can stop with all this about it's a documentary, because it's not. You know, anything that one-sided, that does not involve any other opinions, that does not involve any other narrative, is not a documentary. A documentary is something that is informative, is something that has been researched, is something that multiple sides of a story can be told. And we get none of that in Leaving Neverland. So that short film. But I want to get back to it because it's bigger than what people think. It's deeper than what people think. There are more entities involved. And we need to connect the dots. We need to connect the dots. We need to connect how all of these people and how all of these different entities are involved with the documentary and are intertwined and inwoven with each other. And especially considering the fact that we now have a man that was connected to this, that was connected to Michael Jackson, that was connected to the allegations against Michael Jackson, that was connected to his family, that was connected to the music business, that was connected to Hollywood through a lawsuit that he had filed against Rupert Murdoch, Fox, Empire, Terrence Howard, Lee Daniels, some of the writers on Empire. You know, we have this man that was very, very much connected to this whole thing, and who did interviews and talked about his connection and had allegedly been offered money from the National Enquirer to lie on Michael and say that Michael had molested his children or touched them or whatever. Now that person is dead, and he died under mysterious circumstances just days after all of this became so controversial, and everybody's talking about it, and everybody's doing YouTube videos about it, and it's all over mainstream media. And right before he dies, he gets in contact with a friend and lets a friend know that allegedly he had been contacted by people connected with Oprah. And we know Oprah's connection to the Neverland document, or at least we think we know her connection. So it's time to start putting some of these pieces of this puzzle together. It's time to start bringing some of these entities together. It's time for us to start seeing the bigger picture, because this is much deeper than just a smear campaign against Michael Jackson. This goes even deeper than that. That's deep enough. But it goes even deeper than that. So that's what this video is about. It's about connecting some of the dots. It's about bringing some of the people together. It's about showing some of the behind the scene players that are involved in this, that maybe, just maybe, we didn't know about, that the general public didn't know about. So I want to begin this by playing a little bit of a clip of a video that I found on YouTube, Miss Flying Fairy Productions, and of course I'll leave the link in the description box so that you can go see the whole video for yourself. And I definitely want to give her credit for this. Thank you. She shows a whole another, she touches on a whole nother side to this, and it was because of this video that I decided to do some more research and to start bringing all of this information out, because one video on this isn't enough. So Miss Flying Fairy Productions, and I just want you to first listen to this clip.
Robson now says, very contrary to what he said in the stand. He now says Michael Jackson molested him when he was a child.
It's absurd. It's ridiculous. It flies in the face of his very powerful testimony for the defense.
Let me pause this and let you know who you're listening to. You're listening to TMZ interviewing Michael's attorney, Tom Mesereau, from the 2005 trial. And this is after Wade Robinson comes out with these new allegations.
In Michael Jackson's criminal trial, he was the first witness I called in the defense case. And if you put on a defense case in a criminal trial, you always want to start with a powerful witness. He was very powerful for us. He said that nothing untoward had ever happened. He said there had been no sexual molestation, no inadvertent touching, nothing improper by Michael Jackson. And then he withstood a very powerful cross-examination by a very seasoned prosecutor, and Wade Robson never changed his position. He was adamant that nothing had happened. In fact, he called the allegations ridiculous. And I'm calling this recent development equally ridiculous.
He says that he suffered from a repressed memory and has gone to a psych.
Now, I want to stop right here. And I want to let you know that later on, I think it may have been when he did his interview with Matt Lauer, when he first came out with these, when he first came public with these allegations. I think it was in 2013. He admitted that it was not a repressed memory. As a matter of fact, him and Jimmy Safechuck both, and I think this was also in the documentary, they both said that these were not repressed memories, that they both remembered everything that had happened. They just didn't realize, up until they were both well in their 30s, they didn't realize that it was sexual abuse and that it was wrong. So I just wanted to correct that. That's what was first being reported, is that it was a repressed memory, and because he had been in therapy, the memory came forward. But they have since then, put it out there that no, these were not repressed memories. These were things that they always knew, always remembered. They just didn't realize that it was sexual abuse and that it was wrong.
Psychiatrist, and only after therapy did he realize what had happened. What about that?
I don't buy it for 1 second. I don't know who's influencing him one way or the other. I don't know why he's been induced to apparently change his very strong and very powerful testimony of 2005. And remember, he didn't just give testimony in the courtroom. He did some interviews after the trial where he also said, it's ridiculous, nothing happened. He would look at the people interviewing him and ask them if they'd ever slept in a bed with a friend or with a parent. I mean, he could not have been stronger for us. And I don't know who's influenced him. I don't know whether he needs money. I find it very curious that this development happened in the middle of the civil trial that Catherine Jackson and Michael's children have filed against AEG. None of it adds up very well to me.
Well, ultimately, all of these civil cases amount to money. So do you think, number one, he's motivated by money? And it sounds to me like you think that maybe some of the people involved in the case are behind this. The civil case.
I find it very curious. That this claim has arisen in the middle of Catherine Jackson and Michael Jackson's children's civil trial against AEG. AEG's lawyer got up in his opening statement in that courtroom and said things were going to get ugly, suggesting he's going to try and vilify and take Michael Jackson's reputation and try and pound it and hurt it. And they're trying to minimize the value of Michael Jackson's reputation.
You sound like you think AEG has had communications with Wade Robson even before the case started.
I've said what I'm going to say about that issue.
Okay, let's stop right there. Now, you heard Tom Mesereau talk about what a strong witness Wade Robinson was in the 2005 trial for the defense. He was such a strong witness that they called him to be their very first witness. That's how strong he was. And not only was he strong under Tom Mesereau's questioning, but even when he was being cross-examined by the prosecution, he was strong. He didn't break. He didn't waver. He was consistent throughout his testimony. So the thing that Tom Mesereau is having a problem with is understanding why he changed up his story all of a sudden, whether it was because he needed money or whether he was being influenced by somebody. You heard the man say, I'm gonna let you hear it again.
He did some interviews after the trial where he also said it's ridiculous, nothing happened. He would look at the people interviewing him and ask them if they'd ever slept in a bed with a friend or with a parent. I mean, he could not have been stronger for us. And I don't know who's influenced him. I don't know whether he needs money. I find it very curious that this development happened in the middle of the civil trial that Catherine Jackson and Michael's children have filed against AEG.
Okay, let's stop right there. Now you heard him. You heard him say he didn't know whether he was being influenced by somebody or whether he needed money or what was the case with Wade. But he found it very curious that Wade's all of a sudden change up, switch up, and all of a sudden filing a civil suit against the Jackson estate and against Michael's companies all of a sudden comes up in the middle of the lawsuit that Catherine Jackson and Michael's kids had filed against AEG. AEG was the big promoter that was promoting the tour that Michael was about to go on. And they were the ones that had hired Conrad Murray. You know, Conrad Murray was the physician that later on went on trial for Michael's wrongful death. Well, the Jacksons were suing AEG for wrongful death, because they were the ones that had hired Conrad Murray to be Michael's physician at the time. So I want to leave this clip for a minute, and I want to let you know when the Jacksons filed that case against AEG and subsequently what happened with that case. Okay. Let me pull it up. All right, here it is. This is an article in The Hollywood Reporter. Michael Jackson's family. It is dated January the 30th, 2015. Michael Jackson's family can't revive $1.5 billion AEG case. Okay. Jury ruled in 2013 that concert promoter AEG Live isn't responsible for the King of Pop's death. In 2010, Catherine Jackson, because she was the one who filed the case on behalf of the children, Catherine Jackson, seeking $1.5 billion in damages, filed a lawsuit against AEG, and the family argued that the concert promoter AEG had negligently hired and supervised Dr. Conrad Murray, who was convicted in 2011 of involuntary manslaughter for providing Jackson the anesthetic that caused his death. And the long and short of it is that they didn't win the case. The Jacksons didn't win the case. The case went to trial in October 2013, and the jury found that while AEG had hired Murray, it wasn't responsible for his actions as an independent contractor, and denied the Jacksons' claim. They moved for a new trial and was denied in January 2014. Okay, but this is what Tom Mesereau is suggesting in this interview with TMZ. What he's suggesting is that Wade Robeson's claim and his subsequent filing of a creditor's claim and a civil lawsuit against the Jackson estate and Michael's two companies, MJJ Ventures and MJJ Company, didn't come up until the middle of this case, right before the case went to trial, because Robeson filed his complaint and his civil suit against the Jackson estate May 1st, 2013. So May 1st, 2013, this lawsuit that the Jacksons filed against AEG was still ongoing. It hadn't even went to the jury yet. It didn't go to the jury until October 2013. May, June, July, August, September, October. 5 months after Wade filed his suit against the Jackson estate and Michael's two companies. So what Tom Mesereau finds very interesting and maybe even a little suspicious is that not only does Wade completely change his story, but he completely changes his story while all of this AEG stuff is going on. And while this lawsuit that the family has filed against AEG is going on. Because they filed the lawsuit in 2010. Okay. It was in, I believe, the end of 2011 that Wade Robson had went to the estate wanting to direct the Cirque du Soleil show for Michael that was supposed to be in Vegas. And it was only after he was told that he couldn't have that spot, he couldn't have that position. It was only a little while after that he came out with these allegations and changed his story. Because there's an interview that he did with, I think it was either E! or Entertainment Tonight, where he's actually bragging about being a part of that show. And he's making it sound like he's going to be in charge. He says something about, I got to make sure that it's done right. I've got to make sure that it's done in a way that the true essence of Michael Jackson and the true essence of who he was, can be seen in this show. So he's really putting forth this image that he's a part of that and that he's a part of it in some kind of controlling way. And I'll go back and I'll see if I can find, a clip of that interview where he talks about this show. But we find out that the estate chose somebody else over him, somebody by the name of Jamie King. Then we find out it was in 2012 that, Wade was doing all of these different drafts and everything of this book. And we find out that he was secretly, privately trying to shop this book to different publishers, and everybody kept turning it down. So there's a whole lot going on with Wade Robson exactly during the time that this whole lawsuit against AEG is in the making, is in the proceedings. So that's what Tom Mesereau is concerned about. That's what that's what has got him interested. Is did somebody get to Robson? Is somebody influencing him? Because the thing is, if he doesn't have a job, he didn't have a job. Once the Cirque du Soleil thing broke down, he started talking about, on his blog post, he started talking about, how his career was just, crashed and burned. And he started going into all of these depressions and all of that. So the question becomes, where's he getting all of this money from to keep filing these lawsuits and to keep going in making all these amendments? Because according to the documents, according to the court documents, he amended his complaint, I think it was 4 times. 4 times he amended his complaint. 4 times he went in and changed his story. So this is what Tom Mesereau is concerned about. Tom Mesereau is concerned about, who has gotten to this young man. You understand what I'm saying? Does he just need money, or has somebody gotten to him? But Tom finds it curious that all of this Wade Robson stuff and all of these allegations coming from Wade Robson just pops up in the midst of this lawsuit that the Jacksons have against AEG. So, Let's explore that. Let's explore that. Because you heard what Tom Mesrell said.
None of it adds up very well to me.
Well, ultimately, all of these civil cases amount to money. So, do you think, number one, he's motivated by money? And it sounds to me like you think that maybe some of the people involved in the case are behind this. The civil case.
I find it very curious. That this claim has arisen in the middle of Katherine Jackson and Michael Jackson's children's civil trial against AEG. AEG's lawyer got up in his opening statement in that courtroom and said things were going to get ugly, suggesting he's going to try and vilify and take Michael Jackson's reputation and try and pound it and hurt it. And they're trying to minimize the value of Michael Jackson's reputation.
You sound like.
And that's exactly what happened in the AEG case. That's exactly what happened. It did get ugly, just like AEG said. Just like the AEG attorney said that it was going to get ugly. It did get ugly. And not only did the AEG attorney go for Michael, he also went for Michael's mother, Catherine. And this is in Law Dragon. Like I said, I'll leave all of the links to all of these articles in the description box. But this is Law Dragon, and it's Lawyers Limelight. I guess evidently on Law Dragon, you know, they have this section where they spotlight different attorneys. And it says Law Limelight, Marvin Putnam. Marvin Putnam was the attorney for AIG, for this case. For the case that the Jacksons filed against AEG. And this was done on August 3rd, 2014 by Jeff Schwartz. And this was, you know, this was after the Jacksons had lost the case, after AEG had won, and even after the motion for a new trial had been denied, which was in January 2014. So let's see what Mr. Marvin Putnam has to say. Marvin Putnam, who was responsible for Michael Jackson's death, not concert promoter at Schwartz Entertainment Group, AEG, but Marvin Putnam spent a good portion of 2013 proving that to a jury in Los Angeles, defending the company in a multi-billion dollar case that was among the most storied of the year. As he later told Georgetown Law magazine, there were fans who would line the streets and spit at us. We had death threats. Until you are in the middle of the circus of it, I don't know if you are ever prepared for how big it becomes. Okay, now let's read on down here. And get to where he talks about. Okay, now this is Law Dragon questioning him regarding the Jackson case. Regarding the Jackson case, obviously a 6-month trial is a grueling affair for all involved. Does anything stand out as a turning point in that case? What do you think swayed the jury in the end? Marvin Putnam replied, "It was a long trial, but at this point I have had several long trials and therefore know how to pace it. It's an endurance test, but one I've done before. In this case, a lot of the focus and sympathy rested with the Jackson family matriarch Katherine Jackson. So I think her testimony and how we handled it was key to our victory. For decades, she had portrayed herself and her family as being blind to and unaware of Michael Jackson's many demons. We showed that this was not only untrue, but that she played a central role in keeping those demons, Michael Jackson's addictions, out of the public eye. The stark contrast between her well-crafted public persona and her actual person played out on the stand and marked a real turning point in the trial. In the end, however, I think the jury was swayed by our ongoing emphasis on personal responsibility and the fact that Michael Jackson and Michael Jackson alone was to blame for his very bad choices." Now, that's how he shows that he wanted to vilify Katherine Jackson and try to act like she somehow was able to keep what was going on with Michael out of the public eye. Okay, well, if she was able to keep what was going on with Michael out of the public eye, then why was he always plastered all over some tabloid magazine or all over the news or whatever, if she was able to keep what was going on with him out of the public eye? But this was his way of vilifying her, because you heard what he said. Public sympathy rested with the Jackson family, and specifically Katherine Jackson. Now remember, Tom Mesereau said, the man said that it was going to get ugly. It was going to get nasty. Okay, let's keep going. Let's see if he had anything else to say, because I'm not sure he had anything else to say about Michael. LD, presumably you're immersed in media all day long. When you're away from work, are you a media consumer? What are your tastes in movies, television, books, for example? I am a massive consumer of all media, high and low, with tastes that equally run the spectrum. I don't board a flight without buying all of the tabloids and the New York Times. Together, they do a very good job of telling you exactly where we are as a people at this exact moment. So he's letting you know that he's all into tabloids and he's all into media, high and low. Tabloids, the whole 9 yards. Okay, so now that's pretty much all I wanted to read. Okay, I want this one right here. Let me read this right here, because this is important. LD, Law Dragon. You went to Harvard undergrad. You went to Harvard undergrad and Georgetown Law. Did you always mean to end up in Los Angeles? Was it a lifestyle call to end up in LA, or a professional decision, or some of both? I never had any intention of moving to Los Angeles. Never. I always wanted to be in New York. Maybe with a couple postings in foreign offices like London or Paris. And for the first 10 years, it looked like that was going to be my precise path. And I couldn't have been happier. Then my wife, who is in the entertainment business, got an offer she believed she couldn't refuse in Los Angeles. I loved my firm and colleagues in in New York, and wasn't going. We looked at the whole bi-coastal thing and then ultimately realized that we wanted and needed to be in the same city, particularly since we had 2 small children at the time. So I ultimately agreed to come to Los Angeles, and now I couldn't imagine ever living anywhere else. Okay, now you hear him say that his wife, who is in the entertainment business, got an offer that she didn't believe she could refuse, and it was all of that that led him to leaving New York and ending up in Los Angeles. Okay, so now we see Marvin Putnam, who was the attorney for AEG, the company that the Jacksons filed a wrongful death lawsuit against. The very same company that Tom Mesereau is saying it is really, really curious to him, very interested and very curious to him, that all of Wade Robeson's stuff popped up, and the allegations, his lawsuits against the estate and Michael Jackson's companies and all of this came about right at the time that the Jacksons were in the midst of this whole case with AEG. And you heard what he said when he said that, that Putnam had made it clear that if the Jacksons went forward with this lawsuit against AEG, it was going to get ugly. And you just heard me read how it was his intention to vilify Katherine Jackson. Because he said the public sympathy, the sympathy seemed to rest with the Jacksons, especially the matriarch, Katherine Jackson. So he had to vilify her and make it look like she was somehow responsible for trying to hide all of Michael's so-called demons and all of that from the public eye. But yet we know that Michael's whole life played out in public. He was the biggest superstar in history. Of course his whole life would play out in public. So how was she possibly keeping anything out of the public eye? Okay. But now let's go just a little bit deeper. And let's see how Marvin Putnam, with this wife who's in the entertainment business, is in any kind of way attached to Hollywood and the whole Leaving Neverland documentary. Well, film, short film. That's what we're gonna call it, a movie, or 4-hour-long movie. Oh, and just, you know, for a little bit of information, as far as I know, the documentary is still, the movie is still about 4 hours, maybe a little over 4 hours in the United States. But as far as the UK is concerned, the documentary has been cut down to 3 hours and 15 minutes. Why? Because Brandy Jackson and Taj Jackson have come out and have been doing various interviews anywhere that they can get a platform. And they have been debunking, actually proving that, especially Wade, that a lot of the things that he was saying was just not true. You know, and Brandy was Michael's niece. Taj was Michael's nephew. Brandy was in a 7.5, 8-year relationship with Wade that started when they were about 12 years old. But they actually met, I believe it was on the set of the LA Gear commercial back in, I think it was 1990, 1991. Was when they actually met, when Wade and Brandy actually met as children. And I think both of them were around the age of 8, 9, 10 years old when they actually met. And they met on the set of the LA Gear commercial and Michael's black and white video. And Wade developed a crush on Brandy. And when they were about 12 years old, then that's when, you know, he decided that he was going to ask her to be his little girlfriend. And from the age of 12 until the age of about 19, 20, somewhere along in there, they dated. So Brandy was actually, Michael Jackson's niece was actually dating Wade Robson at the time that he claims he was being molested by Michael. They were actually dating. Because remember, he said the abuse lasted for 7 years. From the age of 7 to the age of 14. Him and Brandy met when he was 9. They started dating or having that little puppy love thing going on when they both were about 12, 13 years old. So it was while this alleged abuse was going on that those two started their relationship. You know, from a friendship to a relationship. And, you know, and Brandy even talks about how Wade was her first sexual experience. They were together through that whole Britney Spears thing. It was that not only led up to Justin and Britney breaking up, it also led up to Brandy and Wade breaking up. So, you know, just to throw that out there. You know, that you know, and if I'm not mistaken, Taj debunked something about this story that Wade told about Michael being just so worried and just so concerned and just so out of it, right before the 2005 trial, and he was just out of it, and it was because he was just so out of it, and because Wade just felt so bad for him, that was the reason why he lied on the stand in 2005, is because he was just scared for his friend, and he just didn't want his friend to go to jail, and he just didn't want anything bad to happen, and he was thinking about the kids and didn't want Michael to leave his children and all of that. And he didn't tell who all was there, although he talked about Michael's kids were there and some of Michael's other family members were there. Well, Taj was there. And Taj lets it be known that this whole scene took place after Wade had already testified. So, because Brandy and Taj have come out so strong and have come out with receipts and have come out with proof and all of that, the documentary, like I said, that's just a little bit over 4 hours here in the United States, has been reduced to 3 hours 15 minutes in the UK, because those areas where those inconsistencies are and the Jacksons have debunked them have been cut out of the original documentary. So that's the reason why over here it's 4+ hours. Over there it's 3 hours and 15 minutes. So if Dan Reed was just 100% sure and just felt, and he was just 100% that they were telling him the truth, and that this so-called documentary is on the up and up and all of that, why is he cutting scenes in the UK? Why is he purposely cutting scenes out? It's because the journalists and people in the UK are actually questioning him. They are actually calling him to task on some of this stuff. They are actually asking questions, unlike what the media, what mainstream media in the United States is doing. Mainstream media in the United States are not asking any questions. They're not asking for any proof. They're not pointing out any inconsistencies. They're just running with that narrative and trying to shove it down people's throats. So that's the reason why it hadn't changed over here. It's changed over there because the folks in the UK are actually asking questions. They are actually pointing out inconsistencies. They are actually demanding, proof and receipts and actually saying, well, this doesn't make sense and that doesn't make sense. And they're actually listening to people who are coming forth with receipts and with evidence that there are at least, if not lies, straight out lies, there are at least major inconsistencies. So over there, those things have had to be cut out of the movie. I just wanted to throw that in there. But let's get back to these Putnams, and let's get back to how Marvin Putnam, the lawyer for AEG, the concert promoter that the Jacksons sued and lost for wrongful death in Michael's death, because they actually are the ones that hired Conrad Murray and so forth and so on. Let's connect the dots. Well, what does this Marvin Putnam man have to do with leaving Neverland? What does he have to do with Hollywood? He's a lawyer. He's a trial attorney. So what does he have to do with any of this? Well, now we're going to get to that. And this is something else that I found out and decided that I needed to research for myself. In the Miss Fairy, Miss Flyer Fairy. Let me see what is it again? Her production. in the Miss Flying Fairy production, the video that you just heard the clip from. And this is, of course, I'll leave the link to this, but this is Bloomberg.com. And Bloomberg.com does features on people. Much like what we just saw in Law Dragon. They do features on people. I don't know whether it's just people in entertainment or whether it's people in entertainment and business or whatever, but they have a feature section where they do features on people. So lo and behold, I typed in Keri, K-E-R-I, Putnam, the wife of attorney Marvin Putnam. And what I find out about Keri is very, 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 very interesting. Now, this is her timeline. Education: Princeton Day School, Princeton, New Jersey, class of 1983. Harvard, class of 1987. This is her work experience. Pay very, very close attention to this. 1986, Williamstown Theater Festival, Summer Apprentice. 1987 to 1990, assistant manager, HBO. Yes, the very HBO that aired the Leaving Neverland film. 1990 to 1992, freelance TV and film producer. 1992 to 2002, 10 years. Vice President, Senior VP for Original Programming, HBO Films. So again, we have attorney Marvin Putnam's wife working at HBO. And not just in little small capacities. But from 1992 to 2002, she was a vice president. She was the senior vice president for original programming at HBO Films. Okay. Then, from 2002 to 2006, she is the executive vice president, HBO Films. So Miss Keri is holding some very, very high positions at HBO. She's been with HBO even before the first allegations came up against Michael in 1993. She's been with HBO since, let's go back, 1987. But this is really, really, really interesting right here. She goes from executive vice president, HBO Films, 2002 to 2006, to from 2006 to 2009, she is the president of production for Miramax Films. And who do we know owned and operated and ran Miramax Films? Harvey Weinstein and his brother. Yes, indeed. She went from all of these positions of authority at HBO to being the president of production at Miramax Films from 2006 to 2009. And then you ask, okay, well, okay, let's put the cherry on top. From 2010 until present, right now, 2010, is when Katherine Jackson first filed the lawsuit against AEG and first came in any kind of contact with Marvin Putnam. Well, in 2010, up until now, his wife, Miss Carrie, was named the executive director at Sundance Institute. What's the Sundance Institute? The film festival. So this woman is now an executive director at Sundance. The very Sundance that first featured the Leaving Neverland movie. So we got Marvin Putnam. See, this is the reason why Tom Mesereau said it's very interesting. It's very curious. So we have the attorney, the trial attorney that works for AEG, married to this woman who has held all of these positions at HBO, left HBO and went to Miramax Films, that's owned by none other than Harvey Weinstein, and left there and went on to Sundance. Well, the Leaving Neverland documentary, I call it a movie, was first screened. So his wife has connections, and not little bitty connections. His wife has some really, really big connections in Hollywood. Also, I believe in politics, because when you go to this page, this is what you're going to see. You're going to see her taking pictures with actors and actresses. You're going to see her taking a picture with Hillary Clinton in 1996. Now, let's talk about this. Channel 4, HBO, quick to grab the Living Neverland film and decide that they were going to air it for public consumption. This woman was vice president of all kinds of things at HBO. Now, this is something that a lot of you may have not known. The same weekend that Leaving Neverland was featured at Sundance Film Festival, the documentary about Harvey Weinstein, Untouchable, was also screened that same weekend. Leaving Neverland was January the 25th. Harvey Weinstein, Untouchable, was January the 26th. Google it. But it's funny how nobody, HBO, Lifetime, Stars, it's funny how nobody has been in a rush to pick up the Harvey Weinstein document and air it. You can't find it anywhere. Why? Because it's been put in a little closet. It's been pushed back somewhere. HBO didn't run to grab it. Lifetime didn't run to grab it like they did I think it was Surviving Kelly that was on Lifetime. But what I'm saying is none of the big channels, no cable TV networks. Nobody has run to snatch up and air Untouchable, the Harvey Weinstein documentary, where they talk to his victims and they talk to different people who knew him. They talk to people who have worked for him. The whole 9 yards. Nobody was in a hurry to pick that up, but they were both featured at Sundance on the same weekend. Again, Leaving Neverland on the 25th, Harvey Weinstein on the 27th. Let's see. That's real. That's real interesting. That's real interesting. Now, when you Google the Harvey Weinstein documentary, Untouchable, I think you get maybe 1 or 2 reviews. You may get 5 or 6 hits when you first Google it, and a lot of it is not really about the documentary itself. When you start reading, it's talking about maybe the allegations against him or something else, but it's not really centered and focused on the documentary. Google Leaving Neverland, and you automatically get, I think it's like maybe 10-15 hits when you Google it. And it's all reviews, and it's all what mainstream media has to say about it. And when you Google the Weinstein documentary, it's still alleged allegations. But when you Google and talk about Leaving Neverland, it's no longer alleged allegations. It's the allegations. It's the sexual abuse. It's like it's been proven. Like it's something that's just been proven. You know, Robeson and Safechuck are no longer alleged victims. They are victims. The victims of sexual abuse. The victims of Michael Jackson's sexual abuse. That's what you get when you Google Leaving Neverland. But when you Google Untouchable, the Harvey Weinstein documentary, what little information you get, and the reviews for the documentary have been, she's, you know, and it was a woman that had been approached by Weinstein that set about to make this documentary and to get all of his victims together and all of this, and to talk to different people that, you know, he had worked with and people that he had known in the past and that type of thing. So it's not just, you know, 1 or 2 victims. It's not just this one-sided story, but it gives you the broad picture of Harvey Weinstein, his life, how he got his start in the movie business, in Hollywood, the whole 9 yards. But they're saying in the reviews, well, it's really not anything that we don't already know. It's really just a retelling of the allegations that we already know. You know, like she's not really dropping any, you know, any bombshells. You know, she's not really adding anything factual or evidentiary to what we are. It's just more of what we already know. Now, that's what's being said about the Weinstein documentary. However, Leaving Neverland is, oh, they just dropped these bombs and oh, we just didn't know this, and oh, this is just brand new territory, and oh, they just, you know, they just providing all of this proof. And really? They come with no receipts. They come with no documentation. They come with no evidence. They come with no proof. All they're coming with is the same thing that we've been hearing now ever since 1993. And that is that Michael Jackson sexually abused little boys. There's nothing new about that. All they're coming with is these graphic, illicit, explicit details of this sexual abuse. But they're not coming with anything that we don't already know. But when you listen to the reviews, it was just so moving and it was just so disturbing and it was just, and they are just so credible and all of that. But the reviews over here on Harvey Weinstein totally different. Oh, well, she's not saying anything that we don't already know. She's not providing any more than we already know. She's not bringing forth any more factual evidence or any more factual proof than what we already know. That's the difference. And again, the Harvey Weinstein documentary hasn't been pasted all over everywhere. All over mainstream media, all over social media, all over everywhere. There are people that don't even know that it's out there. Why? Because nobody will pick it up and air it. Nobody will pick it up and put it on cable TV. It's not on the OWN network. It's not on HBO. It's not on Channel 4. As far as I know, it's not on Stars. It's not on BET. It's not on Lifetime. Nobody will pick that up and put it out there for public consumption, for the public to see. But before leaving Neverland about Michael Jackson, a black man who had outmaneuvered and who had outsmarted some of the supposedly most powerful people in Hollywood and in the music business. A black man who had done what had never been done before with Thriller and crossing over into popular music. A black man who undercover, who under the radar, bought the Beatles catalog and ended up owning half of Sony's catalog. Channel 4 and HBO had picked up his so-called documentary before it could leave Sundance good. And the very lawyer for AEG is married to this woman who not only has connections with HBO, but also has connections with Miramax. Like I said, the production company, the movie studio that was owned by Harvey Weinstein. And now she is the executive director of Sundance Institute. So now do you see why Tom Mesereau said it's kind of curious that all this Wade Robson and inadvertently Jimmy Safechuck stuff comes up in the middle of everything that was going on with AEG. Now we see how Michael, his estate, Wade Robson, Jimmy Safechuck, AEG, HBO, Miramax, and Sundance are all connected. What a small world. Who would have ever thought that the attorney for AEG, the promoter that the Jacksons sued for wrongful death, was married to the woman that has not only been an executive and held high positions at HBO, but she held a high position at Miramax and now holds this high position as the executive director of the Sundance Institute. And she hasn't held these positions for 2 or 3 years. You got to think, the first time she was at HBO as just an assistant, and then an assistant manager, and then a manager, was from 1987 to 1990. That's 3 years. The second time she was at HBO, she was there for 10 years, from 1992 to 2002. Vice president, senior vice president for original programming, HBO Films. Those are the people that would decide whether or not they're going to participate in the making of a film or the making of a documentary. So actually, in actuality, she was with HBO that last stint. She was with HBO from 1992 until 2006. Because from 2002 to 2006, she was the executive vice president. No longer senior. She went from senior vice president to executive vice president of HBO Films. So that second stint with HBO lasted for 14 years. Then from there, she spent 3 years at Miramax from 2006 to 2009 as the president of production. She doesn't go in no little bitty positions. She goes in vice president, senior vice president, executive vice president, president. She was the president of productions at Miramax, the company that Harvey Weinstein owned. Then she left Miramax and went to Sundance in 2010, and she's still at Sundance as the executive director. So now we got Michael, we got Wade Robeson, and like I said, through Wade Robeson, Jimmy Safechuck, because Jimmy Safechuck attached what he had going on to what Robeson had going on, because he couldn't get it to stick on his own, because his first one was thrown out too. And when you look at his documentation and his court records, he has also amended his complaint 3-4 times. So since neither one of them could get anything to stand or anything to work alone, they decided that they were going to come and work together, since they both have the same attorneys. So now we got all of these people all connected. We got AEG through his lawyer, through its lawyer, Marvin Putnam, now connected through his wife to HBO, Miramax, Harvey Weinstein, and Sundance. And it's HBO over here in the United States. It's HBO who hurried up and scooped up, leaving Neverland to hurry up and air it and get it out there for public consumption. It's Sundance Film Festival that screened it. And screened it for a very specific audience. And the woman who is connected to all of these sources is married to the attorney for AEG. She's a part of the whole Hollywood system. Of course she knew Harvey Weinstein. She worked for him for 3 years. Of course she knows David Geffen and Oprah and all of those folks. We've already shown how Oprah and HBO and Channel 4 were connected to the whole Victor Gutierrez book and NAMBLA and the two producers from what was it? Worlds of Wonder. The two producers who were going to take Gutierrez's book and turn it into a movie. And we found out that these two well-known producers, mainstream producers, had also worked with and produced stuff for Channel 4, HBO, and OWN, the Oprah Winfrey Network. Now we see here the wife of the attorney of AEG is connected to HBO in a very big way, connected to Miramax and Harvey Weinstein in a very big way, and connected to Sundance Film Festival in a very big way, in a decision-making way. Pieces of the puzzle are falling together. So now you understand why Tom Mesereau said it's very curious to him that all of this Wade Robeson stuff came up right in the middle of the case with the Jacksons and AEG. And it was in 2010 when Catherine filed the suit against AEG, and it was in 2010, coincidentally, that Marvin Putnam's wife became the executive director of Sundance. Who has enough of who can pull enough of strings to be able to get a private viewing of a documentary that has not even been released yet, has not been aired to the public yet? Who can pull enough strings and have enough of connection with somebody at Sundance to get a copy of that documentary for a private screening on a yacht for Oprah's birthday? David Geffen. Why? Because they're all in Hollywood together. They all know each other. Just think about that. Excuse me. Let that sink in. David Geffen had to have had some kind of pull, some kind of clout with somebody at Sundance that he can get a private screening of this documentary that just aired. I mean, that was just screened at Sundance. He can get a private screening of it to show on his yacht for Oprah's birthday. Before it ever airs on HBO, before it ever airs on Channel 4, before the public ever has a chance to see it. The general public. He gets a private screening. That's how much clout he had and the connections that he has. And we see that Marvin Putnam, the trial attorney for AEG, is married to the director of Sundance. And he says in the case that if the Jacksons wanted to pursue this, it was going to get real ugly. We know David Geffen didn't like Michael, because Michael had outsmarted everybody in the music industry. He had outsmarted everybody. Like I said, he had done what nobody before him had been able to do, and he had certainly done something that a black artist wasn't supposed to be able to do. He had bought the Beatles catalog. Ended up owning, if I'm not mistaken, it was almost half of Sony's publishing, and owned his own publishing, his own catalog. And had broke out of the genres that were just supposed to be for black people, R&B, funk, rap, hip hop, and had taken over popular music to become the king of pop. So Michael couldn't be owned by anybody. He couldn't really be controlled by anybody. In Hollywood, in the music business, this is all the same thing. It's all the same system. It's all the same demonic, beast, satanic system. But Michael couldn't be controlled by any of them anymore. Then there was this deal that was supposed to go down between the Katzman dude, Steven Spielberg, and who was the other? Was it Geffen? May have been Geffen. And they were supposed to do the what is it? It's not Pixar. It's DreamWorks. Michael was supposed to be a part of that whole DreamWorks setup. He was supposed to be a part of all of that. If you look at the logo for Michael's Neverland Ranch and you look at the logo for DreamWorks, you'll see. You'll see for yourself. We know Harvey Weinstein used Michael and used tabloid stories about Michael for years to cover up what he was doing. Dylan Howard, editor of Radar Online and The Inquirer, A.J. Benza, a gossip columnist, and the Weinstein Company published stories about Michael Jackson to blow smoke as cover-up for stories about Harvey Weinstein. This is an article in MJ Justice Project, and it goes on to talk about the interviews that Dylan and AJ Benza had done, where they would trade stories and where they would get gossip, and they would pass this gossip and pass these stories on to Weinstein and to his, his publicity people, and pass them on to his companies so that they could use these stories. If anything was about to surface, or if anything was surfacing about Weinstein, they would use these stories to cover up what Weinstein was doing, and Michael's name was big in that. Why do you think that between 1993 and even now, there were so many tabloids about stories about Michael? Wacko Jacko, and all about this fake lung that he was living in, and all of these different crazy stories, and all of these different stories that just automatically in the tabloids labeled him as a pedophile and a sicko and all of that. All of that was being used to distract attention from what was really going on in Hollywood. Like I said, I'll leave the links to these articles, to all of these articles and these these YouTube videos in the description box, so that you can go back and read and look at it for yourself. So that's all of it is falling together. You got the Jacksons suing this concert promoter for wrongful death in 2010. The attorney for AEG is Marvin Putnam, and then you find out that Marvin Putnam's wife is connected to everybody that's connected to this Leaving Neverland movie. Everybody. And she's also connected to Harvey Weinstein because she worked for him for 3 years as the president of productions. And you wonder why we haven't heard anything about the premiere of his documentary, Untouchable, at Sundance? Because she's now, what? The executive director of Sundance. I got one more thing I want you to hear before we leave. This is Corey Feldman in his interview with Matt Lauer. I think this was, let's see, when was this? This was definitely before he did his documentary. I'm thinking that this may have been just a few years ago, but this is just the YouTube video of it. Just listen.
Sitting down talking to me, why aren't you sitting down with the police right now?
I've told the police. In fact, if anybody wants to go back to 1993 when I was interviewed by the Santa Barbara Police Department, I sat there and I gave them the names. They're on record. They have all of this information, but they were scanning Michael Jackson. All they cared about was trying to find something on Michael Jackson.
Who you said, by the way, did not abuse you.
Who Michael was innocent, and that was what the interview was about with the police in 1993. I told them he is not that guy, and they said, well, maybe you just don't understand your friend. And I said, no, I know the difference between pedophiles and somebody who's not a pedophile because I've been molested. Here's the names. Go investigate. And let me push this forward. There are thousands of people in Hollywood who have this same information. Why is it all on me? Why is it if I don't release the names in the next 2 months, 6 months, or a year, I'm the bad guy. I'm the victim here. I'm the one who's been abused. I'm the one who's trying to come forward and do something about it.
But
hold on, please, I'm sorry. There are thousands of people out there, Matt, who have this information. Any one of those child actors that went to the teenage soda pop clubs with me when I was a kid know who those people are and the people who ran it. Anybody can go back through history and look at the teen magazines and say, what was the name of that venue they were all promoting and who ran that venue and who endorsed it?
You've said you've had death threats.
Yes.
Because you have this information and have threatened to expose it. Another reason, I think, to go to police, that's a crime to threaten someone's life.
I've gone to the police with that as well.
And what would be wrong with going to the police now again? Didn't work out in Santa Barbara.
There's a statute of limitations, Matt, in the state of California, which protects people. It's not that way in New York. It's that way only where the movie industry is, conveniently enough, in California. That's the seriousness of this. You cannot, because if I were to go to the police, I would be the one who's getting sued. Henceforth, I need a team of lawyers and I need a team of security to be around me at all times to keep me safe so I can get this message done.
Real
I'm
quickly.
not playing around. It's serious stuff, and I vow I will release every single name that I have any knowledge of, period. And nobody's going to stop me this time, as long as people support this.
And he did. He did in his documentary, An Open Secret. But again, nobody would pick it up. Far as I know, that didn't premiere at Sundance. And nobody has picked it up. And I think it came out in 2015. Nobody has picked it up. HBO hasn't picked it up. Channel 4 hasn't picked it up. Lifetime hasn't picked it up. Oprah's Own hasn't picked it up. Nobody has picked up that documentary where Corey Feldman outs so many people in Hollywood for being pedophiles. And listen again to what he said.
Reacted to that. But when you were
film with no executives, no VPs,
why do you
no
need
lawyers.
$10 million? Film students make movies for fractions.
Well, that's a film student. We're talking about a theatrical release. We're talking about I'm going to four-wall the theaters, I'm going to self-distribute, self-market, make the film, and hire a team of attorneys who are going to protect me and the film when everybody comes after
Today
me.
you've raised just under $200,000, correct?
Okay.
Is that about right? So it's going to take a long time to raise $10 million. Money. I would imagine you believe that children are being abused by pedophiles in Hollywood.
Absolutely.
So why are you sitting down talking to me? Why aren't you sitting down with the police right now?
I've told the police. In fact, if anybody wants to go back to 1993 when I was interviewed by the Santa Barbara Police Department, I sat there and I gave them the names. They're on record. They have all of this information, but they were scanning Michael Jackson. All they cared about was trying to find something on Michael Jackson.
You said, by the way, did not abuse you.
Who Michael was innocent, and that was what the interview was about with the police in 1993. I told them he is not that guy, and they said, well, maybe you just don't understand your friend. And I said, no, I know the difference between pedophiles and somebody who's not a pedophile because I've been molested. Here's the name.
There he is. He's saying it. He went to the Santa Barbara police, gave them the names, all the information that they would need of the people who had abused him. And you heard what he said. All they were doing was scanning for Michael Jackson. All they wanted was something on Michael Jackson. They weren't interested in anybody that was abusing anybody else. They weren't interested in children that were really being abused. They weren't interested in really bringing those people to justice. Because had they been interested, they would have investigated the names and the people that he was giving them during this interview. But you heard what he said. They were only interested in Michael. And he made it clear, Michael is not that guy. Michael is not a pedophile. Oh, well, maybe you just don't understand your friend. No. I've been abused. I know a pedophile. But again, another connection. As I said, his documentary finally came out. He finally got it made. And it finally came out 2014, 2015. Nobody's heard anything about it. It hasn't been aired anywhere. Nobody talked about it. It wasn't plastered all over mainstream media. And the folks that he named in that documentary are still doing, Bryan Singer and some others are still doing exactly what they were doing all the time in Hollywood. They have not been investigated. Nobody talks about it. Their names and their stories and what's going on with them and these allegations against them aren't plastered all over mainstream media and all over social media every day. But he's telling you as far back as 1993, he was giving the police these names. And nothing was being done because everybody was scanning for Michael. Why was everybody scanning for Michael? Why was everybody scanning for the black man and overlooking the white men in Hollywood that this young man was telling them were a part of these real pedophile rings? Pedophile rings that had been established for years. But nobody investigated that. Corey was tossed to the side. Why? Because he didn't have any information on Michael Jackson. He didn't have any dirt on Michael Jackson. But again, like I said, you don't hear anything about his documentary premiering at Sundance. Because that's a secret. An open secret. A secret that everybody knows about. And everybody's going through the process of protecting that secret. Protecting those white men in those powerful positions. From investigation. From prosecution. They must be protected at all costs. So we must concentrate on Michael Jackson. We must concentrate on R. Kelly. We must concentrate on Bill Cosby. We must concentrate on these black men so we can take the heat off of white America. And these white men that have been doing this for so long that they have several rings, not just one ring set up, but several pedophile rings in Hollywood and in the music business. Well, it's all the same thing. Like I said, it's all the same satanic system. It's all the same beast system. So have you connected the dots? People, have I connected the dots a little bit for you? Have I connected the dots enough for you to see a pattern where all of these people are connected to each other? How is it that the husband of the woman that has all this long relationship with HBO, has this relationship with Miramax, has this relationship with Harvey Weinstein, has this relationship with Sundance? How is it that her husband just so happens to be the attorney that goes into court with the Jacksons when the Jacksons filed this suit against AEG? Is that the opportunity that he was talking about? Because he said his wife got an offer that she felt like she just could not resist. And that's how he ended up in Los Angeles. And she hasn't had any other job since 2010. So is that the offer that she couldn't resist? To come and work for Sundance? Or was that just to position her and get her husband in Los Angeles so he could be the one to handle the Jacksons lawsuit? Because remember he said he wanted to stay in New York. He loved his office in New York. But they decided that because they had two small children, that it would be the best for him to go to Los Angeles too. So was that offer all of a sudden to come and work at Sundance, to be the executive director of Sundance Institute? Was that offer that she just couldn't that she felt she just couldn't resist? Was that to get him and her in the position to do what needed to be done? Because this is a well thought out thing. This is not something that just happened overnight. This is not something that just happened in the space of maybe 2 or 3 months or 6 months or a year. This whole thing against Michael, this whole smear campaign has been thought out from the very beginning. And to bring it back up now, in the midst of this whole Me Too movement, and in the midst of everything that's going on with Harvey Weinstein and Kevin Spacey and some of the rest of them, it's no coincidence that it's coming up now. It's no coincidence that Wade Robson decided that's the reason why Tom Mesereau is saying I don't know what happened, what caused him to switch up, but it's real curious. I'm not buying it. Something else is going on here. It's no coincidence that Oprah was brought in to be the one to interview them after the documentary, so that she can lend her credibility and her platform to them. after years of the witch hunt and going after Michael Jackson that she participated in, the whole time he was on trial, all she kept doing was having shows about pedophiles and pedophilia and sexual assault. We saw a video today of an interview that Nicole did with Miss Geraldine. I gotta get her name right, but that video will also be in the description box. And she wrote a book because she actually worked for the attorney that was in cahoots with Evan Chandler, and she wrote a book about all of that. And she lets it be known that in 2003, they got in touch with Oprah, sent Oprah a copy of the book, thinking that they would hear something back from Oprah, and never heard anything back from her. And all they wanted was for Oprah to present another side, those who had been falsely accused. But they never heard anything else back from Oprah, because Oprah was not about the truth. Oprah was not about presenting anything about anybody being falsely accused, especially not while Michael was going through all of that. So we see how all of the factors, all of the players in this game are connected. Again, we see Victor Gutierrez, the one who wrote that nasty fictional pedophilic love story about Michael Jackson is my lover, the Jordy Chandler's story that was supposed to be coming from his secret diaries, and they found out that Jordy didn't have any secret diary, and that this book was just a total fabrication. Michael took him into court, sued him, and won for $2.7 million, and he left the country and cried bankruptcy so he wouldn't have to pay. Well, we find out in this book that he's associated with NAMBLA, the North American Man-Boy Love Association, these pedophiles that want pedophilia legalized and all of that. Okay, well then we find this Gutierrez and this book attached to Channel 4 and HBO, in that two well-known mainstream directors, World of Wonders, it was the name of their production companies, wants to take this book and turn it into a movie and be true to the book, showing how this pedophilic relationship between a grown man and a little boy could actually be this loving, fulfilling, nurturing, mentoring relationship. And then we find out that these two producers are connected to Channel 4, HBO, and Oprah, the OWN network. They had I guess they had done work for them before. So we see that connection. Now we see the AEG connection, where the very lawyer for AEG who makes it clear that if the Jacksons go through with this suit, it's gonna get ugly. We see he's married to the woman that has had all of this history with HBO, held all of these important high-powered positions at HBO, has held a powerful high-powered position at Miramax, which was the company owned by Harvey Weinstein. So she actually worked for Harvey Weinstein. And then we see her leaving Miramax and going to Sundance, the place where all of these documentaries are premiering. In his interview with Law Dragon, he says that he was fine. He wanted to stay in New York. He was fine being in New York. But all of a sudden, his wife, who's in the entertainment business, gets this offer in Los Angeles that she just can't refuse. So they end up in Los Angeles. When? In 2010, when she got the job at Sundance as executive director. Like I said, was that move to put him and her both in position? To put her in position at Sundance, and to put him in position at the LA office, so that he could then in turn be the lawyer that goes up against the Jacksons. Then we got Corey Feldman telling you right here, he was giving them the names. He gave the Santa Barbara Police Department the names. He gave them the names, gave them his story. And all they were scanning for, all they were interested in is what you got on Michael Jackson. What you got on Michael Jackson? We're not interested in anybody else. What you got on Michael Jackson? We're not really interested in protecting children. We're not really interested in really catching any real pedophiles. We're not interested in really stopping what's going on and bringing anybody to justice. We're not interested in that. We're just interested in what you might have on Michael Jackson. And then we see Oprah's name coming up again in this whole Ron Newt thing, where he says just days before he dies, allegedly, he gets in touch with a friend and tells a friend, I need to talk to you because I've been contacted by people who are connected to Oprah. But before he can get to the friend and before he can get to do the show where he was going to out all of this, he's mysteriously dead. Then we have Dan Reed in the UK cutting out certain parts of the documentary so that it's now just 3 hours and 15 minutes over there, but it's still a little over 4 hours here. But he goes on Twitter or does some kind of interview or something with some Australian a little podcast people talking, trying to discredit Brandy Jackson's story about her relationship with Wade Robeson during the time that this alleged sexual abuse was going on with Michael, and he tries to discredit her and tries to act like, her story didn't make any sense and all of this kind of stuff. Okay, well, if her story didn't make any sense, then why are you cutting out chunks of your documentary over there in the UK? If her and her cousin Taj's stories don't make sense, and if they don't rip apart at least what Wade is saying and some of what Jimmy Safechuck is saying, if it's not affecting anything, then why are you cutting out chunks of the documentary that's airing in the UK? It's because the journalists and the media in the UK are not as hell-bent on destroying Michael and using Michael and other black entertainers and artists and celebrities to cover up what the white folks is doing. So they can be objective. They can point out the inconsistencies. They can ask the questions because they want proof. And because you can't provide it, you have had to cut out chunks of the documentary that's airing across the pond. I'm telling you, folks, it's bigger than we know. It's bigger than we know, and it's a whole lot darker than we know. It's satanic. It's demonic. It's all about child It's all about child sacrifice. It's all about pedophilia. There may even be, some blood sacrifice going on. It's demonic. It's awful. And it's a part of this whole beast system. The government, Hollywood, music, entertainment, all of it is a part of this beast system. And it's demonic, and it's satanic. These people are worshiping something. And it's not just the dollar bill. I mean, when you have a man sitting in front of the police and he's giving the police the names of the people that have not only molested him, but have molested others and are still molesting children. And they totally disregard that because they want Michael. They want something on Michael. If you ain't got nothing to give us on Michael, then we're not interested in anything that you have to say. Just like anybody who believes that lie that Wade Robeson and Jimmy Safechuck come out because they want to protect other victims and because they want to make a way for other victims to come out. Okay, you had all the opportunity in the world. When you got on that stand, when you were a 22-year-old man in 2005, you had every opportunity to tell the truth. To tell that yes, Michael really did molest me. But instead you want to tell a lie that as a 22-year-old man that's testifying in court because of sexual assault. So if you didn't know before then, you know now that it's wrong. Because if it wasn't wrong, you wouldn't be there to testify because he wouldn't be in court. And this wasn't no civil case. This was criminal charges. But you yourself put in one of your complaints that Michael had told you that you could never tell anybody anything about what was going on, because if you told anybody that they would put him in jail, they would put you in jail. So if nothing is wrong with this, then why would we go to jail? But if you were concerned about victims, there's no way you would have got on that stand as a grown man in 2005 and continued to defend this man knowing he had done the same thing to you. So basically what you want us to believe is in 2005, you just threw Gavin Azizo under the bus. But now we're supposed to believe all these years later, you want to protect victims. You want to make the way for other victims to come out. Because you think you got Me Too to support you now. You think because of the Me Too movement, people are just going to automatically believe what you and Safechuck say without any questions, without any receipts, without any proof, without any investigation. No. Are you and Safechuck being used as pawns? What have y'all been promised to do this? Or even darker than that, what do the powers that be who are really behind all of this have on you? That they're making sure you better do this. You better cooperate. So yeah, people, this is dark. This is dark and it runs deep. And it looks like there's a very big possibility that one person, Ron Newt, has already lost their life behind it. This has been Undiluted TV. Stay woke. If you're not woke, wake up. Stay aware. Pay attention. And I'm going to leave you with these words.
And you believe that children are being abused by pedophiles in Hollywood.
Absolutely.
So why are you sitting down talking to me? Why aren't you sitting down with the police right now?
I've told the police. In fact, if anybody wants to go back to 1993 when I was interviewed by the Santa Barbara Police Department, I sat there and I gave them the names. They're on record. They have all of this information, but they were scanning Michael Jackson. All they cared about was trying to find something on Michael Jackson.
Who you said, by the way, did not abuse you.
Who Michael was innocent, and that was what the interview was about with the police in 1993. I told them he is not that guy, and they said, well, maybe you just don't understand your friend. And I said, no, I know the difference between pedophiles and somebody who's not a pedophile because I've been molested. Here's the names. Go investigate. And let me push this forward. There are thousands of people in Hollywood who have this same information. Why is it all on me? Why is it if I don't release the names in the next 2 months, 6 months, or a year, I'm the bad guy? I'm the victim here. I'm the one who's been abused. I'm the one who's trying to come forward and do something about it.
But
Hold on, please, I'm sorry. There are thousands of people out there, Matt, who have this information. Any one of those child actors that went to the teenage soda pop clubs with me when I was a kid know who those people are and the people who ran it. Anybody can go back through history and look at the teen magazines and say, what was the name of that venue they were all promoting and who ran that venue and who endorsed it?
You've said you've had death threats.
Yes.
Because you have this information
Yes.
and have threatened to expose it. Another reason I think to go to police, that's a crime to threaten someone's life.
I've gone to the police with that as well.
And